Welcome to the Terrible Podcast with your hosts from SteelersDepot.com, where you can find all your latest and greatest Steelers news. It's Dave Bryan and Alex Kozora, always lit, talking Steelers. And now, here's Dave and Alex.
Welcome to the Terrible Podcast, Season 14, Episode 17. He's Dave Bryan. I'm Alex Kozora, SteelersDepot.com. Thanks for being back with us this Friday. Steelers Nation, Dave, it is officially football season, September 1st. I woke up today. It was like 50 degrees. It feels like fall, just like that. We're out of August, a great month of August for the team and for the site. So thank you to everyone who supported the site over the past month and looking to make this a great September. Dave, how you doing?
Doing great. The weather has changed here as well, too. A lot of rain in Vegas right now as we speak, raining outside right now. But usually around next couple of weeks, the weather starts to change here, starts getting a little touch of, we get out of those 100 days of 100, we like to call it, out here. So that's coming to an end. So yeah, football season, couple of one really entertaining game last night on the college football slate, and then the Utah obviously looks for real as they handled Florida pretty easily there. So big weekend of college football on tap that I know we're both excited to maybe spend some time watching there, and obviously rounding out the final kind of off week of the NFL, if you will, before a week from, I guess, last night, the NFL season gets underway. So exciting time, and we've got a lot to talk about today.
And you forgot about the best game last night. It was the Idaho Vandals rolling Lamar in their FCS opener. The final was 42-17. Idaho, number 8 ranked FCS team in the country. So roll potatoes.
Roll potatoes.
All right, Dave, let's jump on and still have not as much to talk about as the week's kind of slowed down a little bit. I think Pittsburgh is off these next couple of days, too, from practice. Not entirely sure, but things have calmed down a bit, although there's still plenty for us to discuss. Let's begin with the Pittsburgh Steelers' new look 53-man roster officially. When we spoke Wednesday, the Desmond King signing was reported, now officially announced by the team, 1-year contract there. And they made their move to free up that space on the 53, that was made before the King signing became officially official. But Pittsburgh, we thought and appeared they were trying to trade punter Braden Mann. That ultimately did not occur, and he has been waived by the team. He went unclaimed off waivers. We'll see if he ends up in Philadelphia, who still needs a punter. But Omar Khan, trying to trade the punter, just could not get the leverage to get a deal done.
Yeah, I think, and the fact that, he was on a cheap contract and he went unclaimed off waivers. I mean, you would think if the Eagles, wanted him that bad and were in conversations to get him, that they would have just plucked him off waivers there, unless maybe they're going to try to sign him to, I don't know, 2 or 3 year deal or something along those lines. But yeah, none of that ever materialized. I find that a little bit surprising overall, especially with the decision that was made to hold on to 2 punters. I mean, we knew they weren't going to hold on to 2 punters long, and maybe in the back of their head they said, well, look, we got to have somebody hold this extra roster spot here while we work on getting Desmond King in the door and all like that. So who knows the behind the scenes that went on there, but Mann is now gone. Presley Harvin, obviously the team's punter, and the roster, the 53-man roster, now not the original 53-man roster. Well, look, I mean, you still got a full week to go before, you have to, a little over a week before you have to fill the team in 53-man roster in week 1. And I guess at this point, we'll see if that might change. I mean, they got a lot of defensive backs on this roster right now, don't they?
They do. They have 11 DBs, 7 corners, which is especially heavy. Not sure the last time they kept 7 corners. I mean, they initially kept 7 receivers last year, but then went to 6 once Calvin Austin got put on IR to return after that initial 53 was set. Yeah, with punter, and I mentioned this Wednesday, I mean, I'm all for trying, but I think it's hard to have leverage because the Eagles can, or whatever team can wait you out knowing that you're going to release one of those guys sooner than later. You're not going to carry the 2 punters all the way up until, this is the Saturday before the 49ers game. So, but somebody like Howie Roseman you're dealing with, you're trying to win that battle is going to be tough to do. He's obviously really good at his job. So, I can appreciate the attempt by Omar Khan, but I think it was an uphill battle to try to flip Braden Mann.
Yeah, I mean, look, even if you could have got swapped sevenths or whatever for it, that's more than you had before there. So what does this make it now? With Desmond King in the door, obviously, and who else was it in the door after training camp started? What was it? Quan Alexander, right? So that adds to the long list of historically, once training camp, or really once you get out of mandatory mini camp, that this team, players continue to get added that end up making the 53-man roster. So it's something that's almost next to impossible to predict who those players will be. But it just goes to show you that the 90 or the 90 that this team carries through mandatory mini camp and ultimately on the way to 53-man roster there, that inevitably a couple of players that are not with the team when the team breaks mandatory mini camp are going to end up on the 53.
A tale as old as time for the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you're right. It's King and Alexander, and could somebody else get put on that list here? It's possible, but I think the 53... I mean, let me ask you this. Do you think they really truly carry 7 corners into that Sunday game against him? I mean, they won't all be active, I understand that, but will that be the 53 7 corners for September 10th?
I'm going to guess no. I think something else is happening here. It feels heavy. But once again, I guess the bigger question would be is who would be your gunner if James Pierre's not?
Yeah, I mean, at this point, Pierre's still the guy, and if they wanted to make a move, then maybe they would have made one by now. I mean, I'm not entirely sure what the weight would be if there's something else coming. So
could they still try to trade a guy like Shandon Sullivan or something like that at this point? And it feels like it'd be, looking at, and we'll get into this in a little bit, when you look at kind of Desmond King's tape and all like that, his best fit, moving forward, it kind of feels like slot, inside would be his best fit there. And you've already got the likes of Riley and obviously Sullivan, and probably, what does this mean to a guy like Patrick Peterson actually getting time inside now at this point? And also, my gut's been messed up kind of a little bit this offseason because, started off thinking that a guy like Montravius Adams might not make it. And obviously he did. And I don't know, but my gut tells me that we still might see at least one more change on this 53 and potentially at corner.
That's fair, and it's possible. I mean, they have 4 guys who can play in the slot, and King and Sullivan and Riley, and I still believe Patrick Peterson will kick inside in those more obvious passing situations and dime packages. So that seems excessive for what the team needs right now. Does that mean that they're going to make a change once that first injury occurs, or will it be before week 1? I don't know, but certainly on paper, it feels one guy too heavy, especially in the slot.
As the 53 sit, and obviously we got time but just as a quick exercise real quick, what does your inactive 5 look like right now? Obviously Mason Rudolph's going to be one of those guys. You would think potentially Gunner Olszewski would be one of those guys. So that's 2.
Dylan Cook, I think, is the odd man out along the O-line.
Dylan Cook, so that's 3, at least 1 corner. So let's call that, I don't know what, Shannon Sullivan right now. So that's 4, and then 1 defensive lineman, right? Potentially. Yeah,
so, Watts or Loudermilk.
Potentially Loudermilk there. So that at least the way this is shaping up right now seems to be and we don't know what injuries might happen this week, and maybe you need to elevate a guy, but that certainly seems like it would be a good guess as we sit here right now.
Elevations are a consideration. I think a lot of teams are kind of using that as a loophole right now in terms of, kickers. The 49ers may do that with their kicker situation, may see a former Steeler in week 1, a couple of them obviously in Hargrave and the like, but they signed Matthew Wright because they got some injured kickers. So if you had to guess, it's such a specific question so early, but who gets the hat, Loudermilk or Watts?
I think Watts does.
I think Loudermilk does.
Okay.
It's this run-oriented 49ers team, but could go either way. So we'll see. Let's talk practice squad now. So on Wednesday, when we spoke, the team was, just getting ready to fill out its practice squad and go through all the waiver claims. They did not claim, at least were not awarded any players off of waivers. They did lose one, Tanner Muse, to the Chargers. We can maybe mention that here in a second, but let me pull up the practice squad as it sits here today, and it's been slowly added to and will continue to be added to over the next couple of days, but officially announced by the team. I'm just going to read them in order in the way that I have it written right now. Offensive tackle, Kellen Dyche. Offensive guard, Joey Fisher. Running back, Greg Bell. Wide receiver, Des Fitzpatrick. Wide receiver, Simi Fehoko. Tight end, Rodney Williams. Defensive lineman, Braden Fehoko. Defensive lineman, Jonathan Marshall. Outside linebacker, David Perales. Cornerback, Anthony Brown. Cornerback, Luke Barku. Cornerback, Josiah Scott. And safety, Trenton Thompson. And so there were a couple of outsiders, as there typically are in Dyche, in Fisher, and the other Fehoko, Simi Fehoko, so the cousin of Braden Fehoko, and Anthony Brown, former Cowboy, and Josiah Scott, who was with the Eagles last season. So the other guys were all in camp with the team. No major surprises from the internal, guys that were in camp, but some of the outsiders are some, fairly notable names.
Yeah, boy, that's a lot of when you look at the 11 defensive backs you have on the 53, and
a bunch of slot corners there too. Scott's a slot corner. I think Brown plays in the slot, right?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. They're going. That might be. I don't know if that's another sign that one of these guys might be gone. Sure. From the 53 there. Fisher, a physical guard, out of Shepherd, right?
Mm-hmm. PSAC represent D2.
Right. We had a profile on him from the draft cycle, and then Kellen. How do you pronounce it? Dyche.
I'm not sure. Dyche.
A big boy, right? He
lacks the length. He's got those T-Rex arms.
Yeah. But I mean, tall overall, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like 6'7",
and I think a little light in the pants too. Isn't he like 298 or so? Is he the one that's like 290?
Yeah, he was kind of an awkward body type where he's really tall, kind of more of a leaner frame, really good athlete, but sub 33-inch arms for a 6'7" tackle, which is just an interesting profile overall.
Well, maybe one of them guys can help him eat at lunch in the cafeteria there. Yeah, look, I mean, and I know a lot of people were worried about Braden Fehoko and all like that, clearing waivers and that kind of thing, and obviously he did, and now he's on the practice squad there. So, I mean, not and Rodney Williams, we've talked a lot about him. I kind of wondered if he might make the 53, and Josiah Scott stuff, a former Eagle, right? So there's a little bit of a link there. Did you mention the guy that hadn't been announced yet, Tariq Carpenter?
No, I was going to get to him. Yeah, the one name that's been reported but not officially announced by the team this was late last night, Tariq Carpenter, former 7th-round pick of the Packers. He was a safety at Georgia Tech. I remember watching him at the Senior Bowl when they first started to move him to an off-ball inside linebacker position, and he was getting some work there that week. So that's not been officially announced, but we assume that's going to be announced here within the next day or two.
Okay, and assuming he is made official, to me, I think if my count's right there, that would leave 2 open practice squad spots right now.
Yep, correct. So they're at 14 with Carpenter. So they're going to add, I'm not sure what positions or anybody else. I mean, you kind of think they're going to be outsiders. If they were guys that were on this roster in the summer, they probably would have been brought back by now, unless someone was really trying to wait their time to look what else was available. So no Kenny Robinson being signed. That's maybe a surprise there. Trenton Thompson, I was happy to get back on the practice squad. Thought he had a good summer, a mid-camp ad. Trey Norwood, he's still a free agent. He may be trying to weigh some other 53 type options, but I thought Kenny Robinson would have, been part of this group, and it does not appear he will be.
And yeah, especially with 2 wide receivers now on there, where are they light at on the practice squad? Where could they use another maybe another safety, right? Potentially.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, they have now a 5th inside linebacker with Tariq Carpenter. Maybe another edge rusher, because you figure, Watt may get the occasional day off. Marcus Golden will be in the same boat. They do have Perales on there, so hard to say for sure. Maybe another inside linebacker or outside linebacker, something like that.
What about a backup center?
That's a good point. Yeah, because the two linemen they've signed are not really center capable. So I mean, you have three guys to get you through a practice, I suppose, and obviously Cole and Herbig and Anderson, but a center makes sense as well.
All right, so that should round out here in the next couple of days, and if that doesn't happen while we're on this podcast, we'll pass it along on the next one.
All right, sounds good there. And yeah, just from a waiver standpoint, Pittsburgh losing Tanner Muse to the Chargers. That was the one Steeler who was waived that was claimed by another team. And so just want to note that Muse. Yeah, I mean, I'm just surprised they're a little light at linebacker, 8 linebackers total. Is Kwiatkowski going to come back? There was kind of an initial report that he was going to sign back, and it's yet to be announced by the team.
Yeah, I don't know. We'll just have to watch and see it play out for sure. I don't know which way they're going to go with that.
All right, where do you want to go from here, Dave? Let's talk about...
How about Gunner?
Gunner, yeah. I figured we wanted to dive into that. So we're still gathering details on this. This conversation will probably need to be revisited and updated at some point, but reportedly there's been, I believe, as Field Yates termed it, a restructuring contract, but we don't know all the details. I don't want to speak out of turn, so I'm going to pass the baton to you and let you run with whatever you have on Gunner Olszewski's contract.
And back to you, Alex.
That's all, folks. Yeah.
I have nothing other than what's out there right now. We're supposedly his contract restructured down from his original cap hit of $2.6175 million. Yates says it's now $2.026 million. You know me and my math. And always liking to have the particulars on these kind of things. This has not hit the NFLPA side yet. Checked with former agent Joel Corey. He says he doesn't have anything on it yet. I plugged it into the Excel sheet and tried to come up with every kind of plausible way to do this, take his salary down to the minimum, add a void year, maybe add 2 void years, try to finagle, if somehow they were able to make this a veteran benefit deal, looked into the 4-year benefit rule, all of it. And I come up with a big blue Tarski there, 0. I don't know what happened here other than what's being reported out there. Now it will come out in the wash at some point here in the next couple of days. We'll find out, but it's odd in the fact of, other than maybe a potential straight pay cut for $591,500. That's the only way I can look at this right now. But even so, why him? Why that? Why that amount? It's not like this. I mean, some people say, well, $2 million is way too much for him anyway. But okay, if you feel that way, the lowest you can take his salary down to is $1.08 million. There, it's odd. So it'll seem less odd to me here in a couple of days. But that's all. That's all. Back to you, Alex.
Thank you for the baton passing back to me. Yeah, obviously I defer to you. I don't want to say something inaccurate, but whenever I saw that, and just based off of my more limited knowledge of the cap, I think it's a pay cut. I don't know what else it could be if not a pay cut. Pittsburgh, besides that 2020 pandemic exception, they don't use voidable years in contracts. There's no future money or future years on this contract where you can push that money towards, and why would you want to do that anyway? So the only thing I'm left with is a pay cut for Gunner Olszewski.
But why that amount? Why not take them down to like an even number, something that's because usually they like to work in more even numbers. Anyway, it's just it was very odd. It was odd. I had to check, make sure that was really Phil Yates when it popped up. And second, like I said, I tried to play with all the numbers. I couldn't get the math to work the way the Steelers normally do things. So it will be interesting. And once again, we'll pass this along. I should have that, I would think, hopefully by Monday, and we'll pass that along.
Yeah. Will the numbers from the NFLPA be able to tell you what happened, or will you have to kind of dig through and talk to some people to find out exactly what mechanism or what Pittsburgh's doing with the contract to arrive at this reduced number.
Yeah, look, all I get is the number under, or under the cap drops by X amount, and then it shows the number of players under contract and all like that. So you're working, and that's part of the joy of why I like doing this, because you really have to stay in tune with what's already hit, what hasn't hit, because you're just working off of one master number here. So in other words, I would think this next number would include the Gunner restructure. So in other words, the Steelers should gain X, the previous update versus this next update should show an increase of, assuming he's the only move that goes in on that day, because that's what tends to happen. Sometimes these moves end up being, one update will include like 4 moves in it,
right,
and then you have to have in your head what likely happened. Look, it's not hard to figure out with some of this stuff that the Steelers do, because you already have a good idea, because a report might already be out there what the contract is and all like that. So that makes it the kind of the fun game of trying to keep up with, okay, well, this jump in cap space or this decrease in cap space was these 4 moves. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So all I'm going to get initially is either the cap number increased or decreased, how, gained room or lost room. So I'm still going to be at the mercy of, an insider that has NFLPA access. So okay. Joe Corey will get that to me.
All right, we'll be hopefully be able to update you for Monday's show or Wednesday's show sometime here soon, because I know it's gonna bug both of us, you more than me, but it's gonna bug both of us, waiting to find out what's happening with Gunner.
And here's the other thing right now. They still officially, I think, are working under the rule of 51 until like Tuesday at 4 or something like that, I think. So, but I mean, all my numbers, the latest NFLPA update sheet this morning matches my numbers through the setting of the original 53. And then obviously the Desmond King move and then the Gunner thing happened since then. But I mean, we'll be able to decipher it.
And we do not have the official contract for Desmond King yet, correct?
Right. But just guessing, that's probably going to end up being a veteran. My guess is that's going to be a veteran benefit contract with probably $152,500 signing bonus there, much in the same way of Quan Alexander and who else, Marcus Golden, and some of these guys. I'll be a bit surprised if they ended up paying him more than those guys.
I'm with you. Just want to, because I know some people are asking what's the contract, the literal deal with Desmond King, and we do not yet know officially, but we can take a pretty good guess at it. I do want to talk more about Desmond King. I want to talk about Pat Frymuth's future contract, not for now, but tight end market's been very active this offseason. But before we do that, Dave, football season just about to be back. College football is back this upcoming weekend. Mentioned that. It's going to be a really exciting official week 1 of college football, and back as well are our friends over at MyBookie. Dave, can you tell them more about MyBookie?
I sure can, especially with MyBookie and MyBookie.ag being a long-time sponsor of the Terrible Podcast. We are glad to have them back for football season once again. And Alex, football is back, and so is winning season at MyBookie. NFL, college football, and a brand new cash-out system give you options to bet and win all season long. First 2 legs of your parlay hit for you, cash out early and use the funds on another bet, or just let it ride for the chance at a bigger payday. Use early cash outs as a tool to stay in control of the action at MyBookie. To get started, folks, all you need to do is go to mybookie.ag right now and register for an account for free. When you're ready to make your first deposit, just use promo code TERRIBLE. Terrible is the promo code to grab a welcome bonus on the house. That's promo code Terrible to claim your deposit bonus, and for a limited time, a free chip to use in the MyBookie casino that they have on the site. So as usual, you can bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only at MyBookie, mybookie.ag. And once again, do not forget to use promo code Terrible to take take advantage of those welcome bonuses that they have on the house right now. Welcome back to my bookie to the Terrible Podcast.
For sure, for sure. And some big college football news. ACC officially announcing that Cal, SMU, and Stanford will join the ACC next year in 2024. So the college football realignment continues.
I hate it.
Not my favorite either.
As a traditionalist, and I hate it. But it's, you know what my answer to all this usually is: just follow the money.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that is for sure. But one thing we like more is the Desmond King signing. So to go back to that, I've not been able to watch him as much as probably you have. It's been very busy. I know Josh Carney had a great film room I've been able to go through. And, I know Desmond King has had some tweets about, kind of his official signing and coming to Pittsburgh here. So just any new impressions, any new thoughts on Desmond King? Feels like it's a move that's been a long time coming. We talked about, and you wrote the article back in 2017 that Desmond King, when he came out of Iowa, said that Pittsburgh felt like the best place for him to be, and he seemed super excited to come here. I agree. He's probably more of a slot guy than an outside guy, but he's got that versatility, and that's a good thing to give this defense additional flexibility.
Well, I'm glad you dug that post. I forgot all. You've done this so you can't remember everything you write over the years. I knew there was some at least sort of link back to him, but I forgot about even writing that post several years ago there. So and he seems to be absolutely ecstatic to be with the Steelers at this point now. As far as Desmond King, the player, in the all 22 from last season that I've watched, and just remembering him over the years, the physicality I think is the first thing that jumps out to me, especially with him at this point of his career. Still a very, very physical player. I think he does a good job, especially against the run. I think even as a coverage guy, he does a good job of getting the eligible down on the ground. So physicality at this point in his career, I think, is the number one thing that jumps off the tape for me when it comes to him. He's never been an extremely a long speed, fast kind of guy. The speed really, I think since he's come out has been kind of average overall there. I think he, at this point of his career, and last year, I think he played some inside and outside. I don't know exact reason that the switch occurred. Maybe they had some injuries over there and all like that. Now, look, he was out. People are going to say, all right, why did the Steelers, if everybody's kind of high on this guy, why did the Texans cut him? Well, I think he lost that slot battle with a younger player over there, first and foremost. Second, he was due to make a base salary of $3 million with the Texans this past year. And if he was going to be a backup and probably not a special teams kind of core guy, that combined with them probably wanting to make a youth movement over there, I would speculate that they probably tried to trade him just at that $3 million base salary. And I think he had some sort of like $500 or $500,000 per game roster bonus in there that he can earn based on probably where teams were around the league that could potentially use him versus the money versus the tape. Probably didn't warrant giving anything up for him. So he was cut outright with him. Look, this is a guy that's obviously on the backside of his career here. I view him as yet another slot option fit for the Steelers that could, if you got into a situation, play outside. The change of direction, obviously, in my opinion, isn't what it used to be. I still think he's an incredibly heady player, though. I think, and I put this out on Twitter yesterday. Mike Tomlin has yet to be asked about him being added. And when this does happen, which I don't know when that's going to be, maybe Tuesday, it's going to be a response of, look, this is a guy that we had a relationship coming out of college, had some interest in. blah, 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 liked, has played a lot of football, and we finally got a chance to circle back to him. So there you go. That's probably going to be Tomlin's response on him.
Just add in the pedigree. He loves the word pedigree.
Yeah. I mean, overall, he was like a 5th round pick, though, wasn't he?
When was he drafted? I forget it. Was it that late? You're probably right about that, but let me double check. Yeah, 5th round pick, but he's former All Pro and a lot of experience. So
Right.
I mean, that's probably more the pedigree side of things.
Right. But Lita Ford's coming to Las Vegas. Okay.
Who's that?
For Lita Ford used to be Lita Ford, had her solo career back in the highlight of the hair metal day. Kiss me once, kiss me deadly. That.
No idea. Nope.
Well, she was also one of the original members of the Runaways.
Don't know who that is either. It's all over my head.
With Joan Jett and all like that. Man, we gotta up your background on that. But anyway, back to King. I view him now as an additional slot player. In fact, probably when you look at Riley and Chandon Sullivan, probably your better slot option now of the 3.
Yeah, I think he summed it up well overall. He's a guy that had 10 tackles for a loss last season. So that's obviously, core, guy that's fitting the run and getting in the backfield and making plays. I don't think Houston was as blitz happy as some of his other, previous stops in with the Chargers, especially early in his career. But Pittsburgh certainly is pretty blitz happy with their slot guys. That's what, Mike Hilton was. And he was, among league leaders in sacks, had that 3-sack game against Houston on Christmas or whatever it was all those years ago. So I think King can be utilized there and just has that experience to play outside if you have to, which is certainly not a bad thing overall. So as Mike Tomlin says, don't care about why you're here, how you got here, just that you're here. And so, yeah, you got cut by Houston. I think you laid out the reasons pretty well. That's a rebuilding team. They're getting younger. They got coaching changes. And so a lot of turnover there overall. So I'm not as alarmed by his release and what that means as I might be for other players in other situations. The guy's still 28 years old, so there's still some tread on those tires. So I'm not going to pretend like this is going to dramatically change the outcome of the Pittsburgh Steelers, but it is an upgrade, a talented player, and I think probably a really good scheme fit for what King can do and what Pittsburgh wants King to do.
Yeah, and look, we'll see what the contract says. If it indeed is a veteran benefit contract, that kind of lets you know what the league probably thought about his market value, and I wouldn't be surprised if he had 3 or 4 offers out there for the same contract. But I'm willing to bet if indeed that was the case, this is a situation of King wanting to play for the Steelers, play for Mike Tomlin. You go back to that interview that we referenced there, going back to when he came out there. This guy seems to have all kind of wanted to be a Steeler, and now the stars match up to do that. It's not. Look, I think he's still got some good football in him. I'm not sure he's a 700, 800 snap kind of guy at this point of his career. But I mean, if your idea was to kind of mix and match this this situation, and especially in the slot in different situations here, it gives you a heady player that's played a lot of football, and once again, I think his best fit is inside. This is another situation with a Quan Alexander and a Marcus Golden, guys that probably have seen their better football in their career, but a guy that fits your culture and probably fits what you want to do schematically. Supposedly a good locker room guy and all like that as well too. So this is just another instance to kind of go along with the Quan Alexander, Marcus Golden type additions, if you will.
And I think it's a middle ground between what Sullivan brings and what Riley brings. I think King is more physical, better against the run, better blitzer than Sullivan, although I think Sullivan, represented himself well this summer in that regard, but just overall body of work, King is better in those areas. But King's a better coverage guy than Elijah Riley, who's not really a natural slot cover corner. And so maybe you've kind of found the midpoint between, Sullivan did this well, but not that well, and vice versa with Riley. King's kind of that probably a better player overall than both those guys, A, and then B, just bringing hopefully the best of all worlds there. So I think that's Pittsburgh's calculation. And just kudos to Omar Khan for not, because they could have rolled with Sullivan and Riley, and that would have been acceptable. And we assume that's how it was going to go. They initially make the 53, but can you always find ways to upgrade and what's out there? And can we find something better? And, let's not give up on Quan Alexander despite, already signing other guys. Let's add him to the mix. Let's get Marcus Golden in the mix to, boost depth even more. So just always looking to add kind of a head on a swivel approach from Omar Khan, this front office, to always find ways to make upgrades to this roster.
Yeah, look, depth, right? And especially, let's say it is a veteran benefit contract on top of it. We talk about that all the time, man. You get guys that are experienced, pedigree, and guys that fit your culture. Sign me up for as many of those guys on veteran benefit contracts that you can get.
And it's funny to think about, because if we assume that's the contract for King, and very likely it is, I mean, that's three guys that are on those, veteran benefit contracts that could have really important impacts. I think Matthew Marksy kind of wrote about that today with Golden, Alexander, and King. They're not starters, not going to be stars, not all pro kind of guys, but Golden's going to be really good rotational depth. And Alexander's going to be part of that three-man rotation at inside linebacker, and King still a little unclear of his role, but he's going to probably see time, especially in the slot. Those are three guys that could have really kind of key niche roles. DeMonte Casey last year, kind of a similar situation. Whenever he got healthy, niche role and dime packages, that became valuable. So if you have your kind of pillars, your foundational guys, your Cam Haywards, your TJ Watts, your Minka Fitzpatrick's, and if you can complement that with kind of good, just niche role players, that's when you really put together a great NFL modern defense, because you can't have the best of everything. So if you have really good stud players in D-line, pass rush, safety, and then add that with good complementary pieces, that's a winning model.
Look, you look at this defense right now on paper, and then that's all it is right now. But they got a lot of people that played a lot of football on that unit, and I mean this is really shaping up to, at this point right now, I'd be disappointed if this isn't a top 5 defense in the NFL. Obviously got to keep a lot of these key guys like Minka and TJ Watt and Cam Hayward and all healthy. But I mean, and you could go around the league and say that for any NFL team. But I mean, this is an impressive defensive unit they've assembled.
I just want to see how the communication looks, because it's a veteran group and they're guys that aren't rookies, that aren't new to the NFL and systems and calls and how to adjust, but trying to do that together, because it's a lot of new pieces, and some of those pieces have come here a bit later than sooner. And Alexander getting signed about a month ago. He's only been here for a month. It feels like he's been here for a year, but it's been I think late or early August he got signed, and then Desmond King into that mix. So just how does everything fit? Because you still have some of those miscommunications and growing pains early in the year. I think, again, the 49ers will be a great test in that with their really sound and good scheme. So that is the one concern, but hopefully the talent will win out in the long run.
Right. And, Mike Tomlin even highlighted, a couple of times, even I think most recently with Rich Eisen, saying, communication, and specifically communication at home on the defensive side of football. So we'll learn more about that right out of the chute with this team with two home games right out of the chute.
Right. Great point. And no one talks about that element. Everyone thinks, okay, home game, you always have the advantage. And of course you do, but for the crowd noise, it affects the opposing offense. It also affects the defense, because it's as loud for the defense as it is for the offense. So I think it's a really good point for you to bring up, and for Tomlin to say that how does a defense handle crowd noise is actually something to really focus on at home.
Right. Good unit. Good unit.
Yeah. All right, Dave, let's move now to Pat Freiermuth. No contract for him, may come next year. Not expecting it to, it can't even happen this year, correct, on Pat Freiermuth?
Only 2 years in. Yep. He has to wait another year.
But there's a lot of things happening on the market surrounding him that may impact his status next year. Earlier this year, we talked about Cole Kmet getting his deal with Chicago, and then we knew this was coming, and it officially happened yesterday, and maybe at a higher price tag than I anticipated, but I'll get your thoughts on this, Dave. Minnesota Vikings tight end TJ Hawkinson getting a long-term deal that I believe makes him now the highest paid tight end in football. You can correct me on the details there, but a ton of money for TJ Hawkinson, and that may have a trickle-down effect on Pat Freiermuth.
As far as the base money goes and how this thing is calculated, it's $16.5 million new money average, and that would rank him second highest paid tight end in the league, behind behind Darren Waller of the Giants there. So, I mean, that's a little bit more than what I thought he would get. Not much. I thought he's going to end up in the top 5 pretty easily here, and obviously he did it second overall here. What has he got? 246 career receptions, over nearly 2,600 yards, 18 touchdowns in the NFL. Obviously, on his second team now at this point, and the delay, and obviously him getting paid was a former first-round draft pick and had his 5th-year option exercise and all like that. So he had to wait a little bit, but it certainly paid off with him. So if you look at him now at $16.5 million as the second highest paid tight end in the NFL right now, and you roll back to several weeks ago when Cole Kmet got paid and his new money average was $12.5 million. That's a $4.5 million dollar new money, or $4.5 million in new money average gap between those two. And I think Kmet at the end of this Hawkinson deal is now tied for the 10th highest paid tight end in the NFL overall. And now you try to fast forward and say, okay, what does this mean for a guy like Pat Freiermuth? Well, as soon as that Cole Kmet deal came in, my mind instantly went to, all right, if Pat Freiermuth has a season equal to or better than his first two, which really his first two have been almost pretty close to carbon copies to each other outside of the touchdown aspect of it. So you pencil in another, 60 catches, another, let's say 600 to 700 yards, and let's say 5 touchdowns for Pat Freiermuth in 2023. He stays healthy in the process. A lot of people say, well, what is his concussion history play into all this? Come ask me that question after this season here. This is a big season for him. 3rd season in the NFL, two fairly impressive overall seasons in the NFL to start with here. Once again, if he puts up numbers similar to or better than he has in the first 2 years, some people are already pushing back. Well, you got Washington now and all like that. They say that it doesn't guarantee that Freiermuth gets extended. Look, the Washington edition aside, even in lieu of that, I think if Freiermuth puts up another respectable season here, I think he is in line to get an extension next year. And from where we sit right now, based on the Cole Kmet deal, based on the Hawkinson deal, I think you're looking at somewhere in between a new money average of $12.5 million and $16.5 million. Now, look, if he blows it out, 80 catches, 800 or 900 something yards, 7, 8, 9 touchdowns, could he be in the talk of being second or even highest paid tight end in the NFL? I mean, I think that's a push, but I'm not going to I'm not going to speak in absolutes because he's got this full season ahead of him now. But I really feel in my heart of hearts, barring injury and just barring him falling off the cliff at this point, I think a year from now, we will have already talked about Pat Freiermuth signing an extension with a new money average greater than that of Cole Kmet's, and probably right around the $14 million range.
I think that sounds right. He's been consistent, and Pittsburgh retains their own. And yeah, Darnell Washington is here, but he's yet to play an NFL snap, and we'll just have to see how the rookie year goes for him. I don't think it's going to really impact Freiermuth's chances of an extension or not happening. That's going to come down to more of the money and just those particulars than anything that Darnell Washington does or does not do. I think the other interesting element to this is, and I know that we're going to have a long season and so much canon will change, and you have to be careful about predicting things and feeling like what's going to happen. But you also had the post about the future free agents next year for Pittsburgh, and it's not an impressive list overall. There aren't a lot of guys that you're clamoring to pay. It's Levi Wallace at best, and then a bunch of guys that should be pretty cheap. Now, obviously, there's outside free agency and all these other things, but I mean, there's not really anybody to pay on this roster next year.
You're right. And that list of free agents. Look, I mean, you've got guys in there like your long snapper and all, and even Kuntz, would be up for restricted free agency, and you're probably not going to, if you do anything with Kuntz, you're probably not going to be, that number is probably going to be around $3 million for a restricted free agent.
Yeah, you just won't tender him and just sign him back.
Just sign him to a 2 or 3 year deal, to keep his cap number down there. Now you got an interesting exclusive rights free agent potentially, assuming he lasts on the season. Now in Dylan Cook, but that's all you have to do is tender the minimum there. But as far as the guys that are right now on paper, and look, this list will change by 1, 2, or 3, and maybe even add to it, depending on how things shake out later in the season. Have to maybe sign someone like a Riley or,
there are guys to sign, but in terms of like spending serious money on these guys, there really aren't many of those names.
No, who's potentially look, what's the odds of Marcus Golden being back next year? What's the odds of even a Desmond King being back next year? What's the odds of Quan Alexander? Sure, those guys could return, but are we talking about, $5 million new money averages for any of those guys?
No, I mean, they're playing on, minimum level contracts this year. Maybe they have a better season. Maybe that produces some sort of higher market, but nothing that's going to, take a big chunk of your cap space.
Right. And even Levi Wallace, what's the outlook of him past this year?
Yeah, that's kind of the biggest name that may cost the most. He's still not going to cost a ton. 2 years, $8 million was his contract initially. I think he's played well. I'm a fan of Levi Wallace. It may be something similar should they choose to re-sign him. If they choose to re-sign him, of course, you got Patrick Peterson to sign through next year, and Joey Porter Jr. is going to start here sooner or later. So obviously you could sign Wallace and have top 3 cornerbacks there, but he's not breaking the bank either.
Right, and then next year's is year 1 of the new 3-year cycle for the CBA as far as cash versus cap and all. So you're going to have to spend. So you're probably not going to spend the type of cash that you've spent the last 2 years, but you're still going to have to spend some cash here. Who else is in line to get a deal next year?
We'll have the Najee discussion, but we think 5th-year option. They're not going to do anything next year, probably with Najee.
Right. And even if they did do a situation that we talked about previously, like the 49ers did, or with like the Panthers did with Christian McCaffrey, right? Mm-hmm. Signing him to a deal before you even get to the 5th-year option decision. What even kind of money would that look like for Najee? You're not talking about break the bank. That would be another discussion to have. But once again, he's going to have a big season. Freiermuth's the only guy.
Right. So that's my point. And so I think that's more reason why we think they'll pay him. They'll have the money to do so, the desire to do so, and I'm sure Freiermuth wants to stay in Pittsburgh. So it just makes a lot of sense overall. Although not going to be cheap as you're laying out here. The price has gone up, that's for sure. And, it's the tight end market has gotten pretty hot here over the last, 6 months, if that.
All right, let's draw the line in the sand in this and then move on. A year from now, the Monday before or the Friday before the final, the final week of the offseason next year, will Pat Freiermuth have had signed a extension with a new money average of $13.5 million or greater?
Well, I can answer will he sign more than I can answer the money, but I'll say yes to both.
I will as well.
Okay. Omar Khan has shown he wants to retain his own. He's going to keep his guys. They're going to get paid. It's going to be done sooner than later. We're not going through all this crap, lengthy hold-ins and back and forths and will he, won't he, and all that kind of nonsense. Omar Khan is very much, here's the offer, let's get the deal done, let's take care of it, and let's move on.
Exactly. And once again, Freiermuth's season will obviously play a big part in that decision, but assuming he stays healthy and puts up a season like he did first 2, I don't see how it doesn't happen.
Just a quick sidebar off of that. There was a really interesting article, and we had written about this a couple of days ago from The Athletic, and I forget the exact topic, but it was talking about some of the GMs, and it was an agent, I think, based poll and commentary, and they had really glowing remarks for Omar Khan. And that's the benefit of signing the quote unquote cap guy, because he has such a good working relationship with agents, because he's involved in all these contracts, that whenever he becomes the GM, obviously those relationships remain. And I think that's probably one reason why these deals have happened pretty quickly, because they know each other, and the agent said that Omar's fair and true to his word. And what did they say? Something like, you trust him as the day is long, or something, fanciful like that. And that just speaks to his character and why he became GM. And I think why these deals have happened seemingly without a ton of resistance and none of the messiness that may have happened in the past.
He lulls you to sleep, doesn't he?
The contract, yeah.
Hey, I like that. The contract.
I wasn't even trying to make a funny pun, but
I tried to give you credit there, so I will now take credit for that.
Please do.
That's good. The
contract.
The contract. Okay. All right. To round this out real quick, let's roll through the potential free agent list as it sits right now. Your unrestricted guys: Levi Wallace, Montravius Adams. We think Gunner Olszewski. We'll see if that changes here. Miles Killebrew, Marcus Golden, Quan Alexander, Desmond King, James Pierre, Shandon Sullivan, Armand Watts, Mason Rudolph, Miles Boykin, Elijah Riley. Your restricted guys: Christian Kuntz, Anthony McFarland Jr., Chappelle Russell, Rennell Wren. Two of those guys, Russell and Wren, are going to be on IR this year. And so four restricted guys, and then one exclusive rights guy, as we sit here today, in Dylan Cook.
Yeah, it's not the most attractive list. Again, some of these guys will be re-signed. I'm not arguing to release all these guys next year, not bring them back, but they're not going to spend a ton of money, and you may see some more roster churn next year, I'm guessing.
Right.
All right, Dave, anything else you want to talk about today? I think I've kind of hit on all the topics I want to get to. If we have nothing else, we can get to a couple of reader emails and close out today's show.
Let me roll through real quick, see if we missed anything here. I think the Steelers are already starting to get the growing respect that this team has gotten from the national media over the last couple of weeks has been pretty impressive. What is it in some of these, even the NFL.com crew and all like that have already made their picks for the week 1 game, and 60% of them have had the Steelers to win in week 1 against the 49ers. Wouldn't that be a stand? Look, it wouldn't be out of character for Mike Tomlin, right? Guy, you go into week 1, Mike Tomlin's team against a tougher team that's not favored, and pulls off the W there. The 49. This thing is shaping up, though, and obviously we got a week ahead of us to kind of preview this thing. But man, George Kittle dealing with some sort of groin abductor strain or something like that to start the week. Already they've got a kicker situation they're going to have to go through. You got the whole Brock Purdy coming off of injury thing.
The kicker situation's kind of a mess right now for them.
Bosa, even though you look, I think the general consensus is that Bosa's going to get done here in this next week, but he hasn't played any football yet. Yeah, it's probably not going to take him a lot of time to ramp up, but could that still result in him being on a pitch count, so to speak, in week 1 here? Even Hufanga's had some sort of what do they call that thing behind the knee that he's got? Some cyst or something. That they don't think it's serious, but it's caused. You look at this in totality, and you look at the Steelers roster, and you look at how healthy this team is. This is sort of kind of like a perfect storm brewing here when it comes to this week 1 game.
Yeah, I hadn't thought about it much. I still think about, when it comes to San Francisco, their right tackle situation. Is Colton McKivitz really been named their starter? Is TJ Watt going to wear him like a hat week 1? We'll have to wait and see, but that's the thing I thought about with the 49ers is TJ Watt against whoever's right tackle for the Niners, just because they lose McGlinchey to Denver, and I don't think they really ever adequately replaced him.
All right. They still got that big house Trent Williams on the other side. I'd run that way if I was them. There's my expert analysis for you there.
Are the Steelers really worth only $4.63 billion? Forbes came out with their valuations for the 2023 NFL teams. If Washington's going to sell for $6 billion, I know, Pittsburgh may be, I guess, comparatively a smaller market, quote unquote, but Pittsburgh's got to be worth more than that, aren't they?
That's a lot of zeros. I don't
Yeah.
know. That's getting into,
not that they're for sale. No one's saying they're for sale, but I just think if they were to be sold.
Getting into, I see where you're coming from though, but I'm obviously behind on NFL team valuations and everything that goes into that though. But I mean, look, you just just the fan base and the way they buy merchandise and the draw and the TV attraction and
international appeal.
It does make it feel like that's a bargain,
right?
If there is why don't you go see what you got in your piggy bank?
I was gonna say, yeah, scrounge around your couch cushions for $4.63 billion and write Mr. Rooney a check.
Now look, Thomas Toll, evidently there's that report that he's wanting with these Harris sales shares, and I think even another part minority owners went over to the Commanders too, right? That's having to sell some shares as well too. Is there any way this does down the road that a guy like Toll ends up being? In other words, is there any way that this isn't Rooney owned at some point?
I mean, they're building a succession plan for Rooney II, and I lose track of my Rooneys here. I believe his name is Daniel Martin Rooney. I want to say, I know Matthew's written about him a time or two, and that seems to be the heir to become the next team president. So I assume, it's going to be held through him for the next, 30, 40, 50 plus years. But could somebody like a Thomas Tull increase his share? I mean, he's trying to obviously right now because Josh Harris, who owned, I think 5% in Pittsburgh, has to sell that in order to, own the Washington Commanders. So Tull, I think, is a Pittsburgh guy, pretty recognizable name, film industry, that type of stuff. So my belief, it's still going to be under Rooney control for a long, long time. But I guess you can never rule things out, especially whenever that transition happens from, our Rooney II to the next Rooney. Does that shake anything up? Who the heck knows?
Right. So in other words, you're telling me in my lifetime it should stay under Rooney control, right?
I'm pretty confident in that. But I think you're going to live until like you're 200. I think you're going to just be an eternal presence working the salary cap. So I think lifetime's a relative term.
Don't you put that kind of voodoo on my wife?
we need
Bless her heart.
We need cap stuff, Dave. You can't go. All right.
Okay.
Let's get to some reader emails and close out today's show.
Let us do it. Let me go to the email machine here. And we will start with Brian DeKecko, I think. He says, Gentry's blocking decline. I heard you mention a decline in Gentry's blocking last year. I'm guessing that decline, at least in part, led to the team to have more of an interest in Washington during the draft and ultimately to release Gentry this year. He says it seems odd that blocking would fall off from one year to the next for a guy Gentry's age and size. Did you see something change in his technique, how defenders were defeating his blocks, or did he just seem to lose the will to be a good blocker? Maybe there's something you saw in watching the tape. Appreciate you guys. Brian, he says, he does some analytics as well too. Wants me to get in touch with him here from Carnegie. He's a Carnegie Mellon University guy, so he's like 9 times, probably 19 times smarter than us. Here.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Here, Brian, I will say this: Gentry has never been considered a hugely great blocker. In fact, I dare say he barely reached average in my viewpoint. Now, not last year, but the year before, I thought there was a slight step forward for him, but I did think there was a slight, whatever that gain was last year, I thought it was declining. It just, some big guys in size and all like that doesn't necessarily equate to them going to be a good blocker. Did I say, I'll defer to Alex a little bit more on this. I mean, hand usage and all like that. I didn't notice a huge, decline in anything as far as, schematics and him technique or anything like that. It's just, he's never been a great blocker.
Yeah. I mean, I'm with you. I think 2 years ago, he was a better blocker. Why did that seem to regress a bit last year? I'm not sure. I wouldn't say he lost the will or anything like that. I wouldn't go nearly that far. It just maybe some tough matchups and just maybe some technical stuff that could have been cleaned up, or maybe he's dealing with an injury we don't know about. I mean, a million different factors. And some guys just, have better years than other years. I mean, that's just kind of the ebb and flow of sports careers. So it's hard to say for sure, but Gentry was never a dominant blocker. And so that probably, had he been a Matt Spaeth type, he probably sticks and stays, at least as insurance and a backup plan. But since he wasn't at that level, then he became more expendable.
Look, he's still out there as a free agent at this point, right?
Yeah, he still is. Probably we'll try to catch something once injuries start to pile up here in season.
Right. I mean, that tells you a lot about what teams I think around the NFL think of him even at this point. Now he's likely to end up on another roster at some point, as you said. Luke Weaver. You'll like this one, Alex. It's a special teams question here.
Okay.
Luke Weaver writes in, I hear you refer to players that are or aren't special teams capable. This is so critical for bottom of the roster guys making the 53, but what makes a good special teams player and how do you evaluate it? He says, do you check and see how many snaps a guy has taken on special teams in college or NFL, or is it something that you can evaluate through tape? Is it a technique thing with offensive players needing to learn to tackle and natural defenders needing to learn to better blocking? Is it more athleticism and conditioning, needing to have speed and stamina to sprint the length of the field quickly many times per game, or is it just the want to desire to stick your fan in the face? He says basically what makes Killebrew and Boykin excellent special teams players but below average at safety and receiver, and would an all-star like Minka or Deontay automatically be fantastic special teamers but they don't play there just because of injury and stamina concerns, or is there more to it? Thanks for your entertaining content. I would like to answer Luke's question first, Alex.
Sure. Go ahead.
And say yes.
Yes. That's the correct answer.
And I think, Luke, I think you've hit on a lot on this here. Look, coming out of college, it obviously helps if they've done anything in college special teams. I think that's initially when the Steelers draft some of these guys, we immediately kind of run and try to find out what guys, later round guys, do they have any special teams ability. In the NFL, you always look at, when you sign a player, you look and see how many snaps they played on special teams. Body types and positions usually play a lot into this. Your wide receivers and your corners generally are the type of guys that end up being gunners and vice players. Their ability to get, a guy like Boykin specifically is so good at getting off of the line and defeating vices, and getting James Pierre getting downfield, and those aspects there. Your linebackers and safeties, your Miles Killebrew, just have that kind of grit. Especially if they're going to be an up back, they got to be able to read stuff and be able to be that last line of defense, almost like if you're a blitz pickup kind of guy there. Your offensive linemen generally are obviously, or defensive linemen are on field goal teams, or one or two of them might be on a kickoff coverage or return team. Want to is a big part of this overall. I mean, Luke, you really laid it out good there. Alex, anything to add to this?
No, not much. I think you said it well, Luke. I think you laid it out perfectly. I would say the number one thing overall is that that buy-in for special teams, because that may be the difference between the guy that makes it and the guy that doesn't. And I think about, a Benny Snell. That's the guy I always go back to because I think it's such a perfect example. I mean, in college, he was the guy. He was big man on campus at Kentucky. They upset Florida. He sets all those records, one of the best, most productive runners in SEC history, and then goes to the NFL and is running down kicks and punts, but takes the same pride in that and developed himself into a really quality core special teamer. So how do you evaluate that? It can be tough in college because often these guys aren't playing on special teams. They're starters in college and they become, special teamers at the NFL level. So you may look early in their college career if they were freshmen trying to, get a hat and work their way up the ladder the way that they do in the NFL. You may look at All-Star games, Senior Bowl, Shrine Bowl. Did they play special teams there? I remember Chase Claypool. That was the comment that Kevin Colbert made when they drafted him, what he did as a blocker in some of those drills. And on special teams, you might kind of get a glance there. But I think it really comes down to desire. And putting in the time. As you said, I remember Danny Smith at camp this year telling the offense in the tackling drill, hey, you guys got to work at this a lot more than the defense because the defense tackles every day. You got to put in extra time because you guys don't tackle as often. So it's really about 1-2 and tape study, desire. But of course, hand use, block shed, athleticism overall, tackling, technique. Those things are really important too. Right. So it is everything, but I think it comes down to your desire and 1-2 that probably defines those guys.
Look, it's fun to go through that all 22 tape during the season, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I just had the clip in the preseason. It's the finale. Connor Hayward just blowing up a blocker on kick coverage. Doesn't have to make that play. It's preseason. It's not going to matter that much, but dude's just, a gamer.
All right. We should know who the captains are on this team here fairly soon, right?
Yeah, I think they always do it the week of the week one. Usually that, Tuesday they're off Tuesday, but probably that Wednesday, I think they vote. So, I mean, we assume, Cam and Kenny and Killebrew and probably someone else.
Right. Okay. I got through all the questions there. I think that's got us wrapped up here for today. Anything else you'd like to add?
Nope. Well,
on Monday, we're going to probably try to have a round table discussion with all of our full-time guys and get their thoughts on the 2023 Steelers, get some record predictions and weaknesses, strengths, and just where the rest of our guys are. So that should be entertaining. We'll have more cap info and obviously maybe more practice squad guy info and all like that to fill in that Monday show there. So that should be an entertaining show. And I think on Wednesday, probably have our predictions for the season, and hopefully we're going to try to effort a 49ers beat writer, right?
Yeah, well, we're back in football season, man. So Monday, hit the ground running. Should be a really good show, and will be a good week. And heck, San Francisco will be here before you know it. So can't wait for all that.
All right. In the meantime, you can follow me on Twitter at Steelers Depot. Follow Alex on Twitter at Alex_Kozora. Follow the show at Terrible Podcast. Email the show, theterriblepodcast@gmail.com. If you like what we do and want to donate to the cause, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the donate button up right navigational bar. Also, if you'd like an ad-free version of the site, SteelersDepot.com. Hit the ad-free button up right navigational bar. Once again, thank you everybody for listening, whether it be podcast or YouTube or however you interact with us on that media side, Twitter and all like that. And special thanks to everybody who goes to the site, because we had a record month, all-time record month of August on that as well too. And Alex, you obviously get a lot of thank yous for that, for the job that you did in training camp, and obviously our staff play a big part of that, play a big part in that as well too. Just tireless work over the month of August, and so thank you to everybody, staff and readers and listeners and all like that. And we look forward to bringing this 2023 season to everybody. So in the meantime, as always, thanks for listening to the Terrible Podcast with Dave and Alex.